he comes everywhere. He comes on tour with me.
You take him on tour?
Yeah. He says, but yeah. Well, if only to annoy, particularly in England, because it fucking annoys everybody else. So what I do is, so in between one of the songs, I'll go and put my arm around him and say this. So if we're in Leeds, right, or Liverpool, and they put a big picture of Pep up on the thing, and everyone starts booing, and I'll be like, he's your fucking master. He's your master. My God, your master. And but he oversees the tactical plan. So sometimes when we're in there, he'd be like, what would he do? What would he do? He'd do something mad. Like I can't play the keyboards, but he'd say, you're playing keyboards today. You know, it's like when he plays the left back in goal, you know, and it turns out it's the most amazing thing he's ever done.
But Noel, thanks for seeing us. That's first of all. And we're not here as you as a pop star. We're here as a Manchester City fan. So if you could start by just telling on why did you become a City fan?
Well, when I was born in a place, Manchester City was based in an area called Moss Side. That was its its second original home. And the place I was born was the next area along in a place called Longsight. And the training ground at Platt Lane was about a 10-minute walk from my house. So my dad used to take us there to watch all the old players train, like Dennis Chewett and Mike Summerby and Colin Bell. So they were my local team, you know, and that was it. And then the school that I went to in the area that I grew up in was a Man City area, and everybody was a City fan. And then the second house, where we moved from that house to another area, and you could see the floodlights from my bedroom. So it was always my
main
team.
road.
Main road. Yeah. And when you couldn't go to the game on a night game, you could see the floodlights on in the rain, but you were listening to the match on the radio and watching the flood. I mean, you couldn't see the game because you're like 12 miles away, or whatever. But you would like stare at the floodlights or listen to the radio. But it's always been my team. And a lot of young people won't realise it now. But when I grew up in the 70s, Man United weren't all that. You know, Man United really took off.
They went down as well one year, didn't they?
Man United took off in the 90s. So when I was growing up, the level of popularity was quite even. And it was only in, you know, the next 20, 30 years where City went into sharp decline and United went through the roof, because when the Premier League took off, City weren't in the Premier League, so everybody had a head start on us. But yeah, City's always been my, through birth, it's always been my team. And it's funny because I come from a big Irish family, and traditionally all Irish people will support Man United and Liverpool because of George Best, and it's quite odd that we support Man City, because we've got loads of cousins, obviously being from an Irish family, and they're all Man United fans. So there's only me and my two brothers who were kind of City fans out of all the family.
And who were your first heroes in that time then?
Colin Bell, Mike Summerby, Dennis Chewett, Tommy Booth, Joe Corrigan.
Wow. Legendary players.
Yeah, and which is one of the great privileges now, is when I go up to the Etihad, they're all still there. And they're all great guys, very, very funny. And, it's great seeing all the young lads with the tattoos and all the like the new players, and they're great. But when you see the old boys, it's like you're. So I had pictures of them all on my bedroom wall. It's like your bedroom walls come to life, you know.
But on your walls, because you say your passion was football, and you always said that your passion was Manchester City. But still, you're one of the greatest musicians this country has ever made. And so, did you have the same passion for football and music? Was that in parallel universe? Or?
Well, yeah. Well, obviously, I was into football before I was into music. So, football for people of my age, because it was pre-internet and everything, that was always your first love. So, I've had various girlfriends and wives down the years who said, well, I only wish you fucking loved me as much as you love football. And I'd be like, but I love football first. It's like, that was my first love. And, but I love the game in general, do you know what I mean? And if we're ever touring around the world and there's a local derby on, we'll go and see it no matter who's playing. But no, I love football. I love watching it, and your passion for it was tested in the 80s and 90s when City weren't doing much. But it's a funny thing because the worse City got, the more we loved them. Do you know what I mean? But no, football. It's just it means a lot to me. Do you know what I mean? I love it. I hate when the pre-season, when it goes away for 3 months and you're just like, what the fuck? Honestly, I'm kind of. It's great when there's a World Cup on or a Euros, but when you get those odd years where there's nothing, you're just like, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?
And also, Noel, I've seen some interviews, and I don't know how much is spin or whatever. I mean, but how that Manchester United, you said that was your local team. You were blue because you were the local. But that hate for Manchester United, how deep is that?
For me personally, it's this. They had that fucking banner at Old Trafford, which was counting down how many years it was until City had won a trophy. And it was like, you fucking won the Champions League and everything, you know. I don't like them. All my friends who I grew up with who were United fans, respect them and all that. But it's like the United fans down here, they're the people who I can't stand, because it's like, they're just glory hunters, do you know what I mean? And they're all of a certain age. They probably had no friends at school. And they probably just latched onto United because they were winning everything. And to people who from up Manchester, like we don't respect them or any, you know. Same as Liverpool fans when you see them down there. I respect all Liverpool fans. When you see them down here, though, you're just like, why'd you? I can't work it out. I don't get it. You know what I mean? I don't get it. But yeah, United and Ferguson, they were very mean-spirited towards City when they were at their peak, and it's great to stick it to them now. You know what I mean? It's great. It's great now. The tables have turned. It's amazing.
And I spent the time in the 90s in England. It was the peak of Oasis. You were the melody to a decade. It was a fantastic time to be here. I guess then some Manchester United players were big fans. Tell us about that, because they were Oasis fan as well.
Well, Beckham is a huge fan, and the funny thing is with that United team, they had, when those local lads came through, it was kind of bittersweet because I love seeing the Mancunian lads, and particularly the young lads, do well, right? And they were all massive Oasis fans, but they fucking played for United, right? And City didn't have that many local lads, certainly none that came to the gigs like, you know, Ryan Giggs and the Nevilles and Beckham. But yeah, Beckham is a huge Oasis fan, and they were always at the gigs. And there was one when Oasis played Main Road in 1995. They were all there, the entire United squad, and there was a bit of tension backstage because some of the City squad were there as well. And I mean,
you signed for them? Did you sign their stuff, or did they come and see you? Did they see you backstage?
I don't think. No, I don't. No, I've never signed anything for him. Famously, Gary Neville. I was doing something at a Manchester radio station, and he was learning to play the guitar, and his friend was the DJ and said, "Oh, can you sign this guitar for Gary Neville?" And I defaced it, and a few years later, I went into my office just round the corner from here, and there was like a guitar case on the desk, and one of the girls said, "Oh, somebody sent this to sign for," and there was a card, and it was said, "Oh, blah 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 blah. It's my husband's 25," and it was Colleen Rooney, right? And she bought him this really expensive Gibson Les Paul, right? And I knew it was expensive by the guitar, and I was like, "Fucking cheeky." I mean, she must fucking know, right? She must know. So, will you sign it for him for his birthday? So I took it to my mate who's a painter, and we took it all off and painted it blue.
No.
Yeah, painted it in blue emulsion, and wrote some pretty offensive, disparaging marks on it. And when ironically it's turned out that guitar's now worth a fucking fortune.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
But then sent her a note back, you know, saying next time you want anything signing, send us one of his Bentleys.
Good point. A good point. But the thing is, I want to go back there because Oasis at that time, yourself, you created identity, you created something for Manchester. At that time, great ambassadors, and up today now, coming up to different jubileums with all your songs. But I'm just thinking, at that time when Manchester City were down, the key game, Gillingham, the final.
I was at that game,
Yeah, you were at that game.
Yeah.
Did you see that things turned around, or did you have to wait till the money was invested, so to say?
Well, now, when you look back on it now in hindsight, people say, oh, that's where, you know, if we hadn't come back in that game. But, you know, we went up that year, but we went down again after that. You know, that wasn't the start of the rise of Manchester City. No, listen, let's be frank about this. Had Sheikh Mansour not took over Man City, we'd still be mid-table.
And you know, and I asked that with an open mind. You have no problem as a pure Manchester City blue to get money in and go all the way. You don't care.
No, because you can't do anything in football without money. It's rare, like when Leicester won the league. It's so rare, and it's such a maybe shock is not the right word, but it's such an inspiring moment where you go, wow, this team, you know. But 99 times out of 100, Leicester City don't win the league, you know what I mean?
Not.
And to compete with the big guys, you need... Look, when Sheikh Mansour... I was in Canada on tour when he took over, and, you know, and there was all the spiel, we're going to make this club the biggest club in the world, and blah, blah, blah. And I remember coming back to... we were up at a game at the Etihad, and they just bought Carlos Tevez, right? And they wanted to do a picture of me with Carlos Tevez after the game. I think we beat Wolves, whatever it was. And it's the first time I met Khaldoon Al-Mubarak, right? And I was so impressed with this guy. He was kind of, I didn't know what to expect. He came out and he was young, you know, and he spoke perfect English, and he just laid out this vision, just stood in the tunnel, there wasn't no, he just laid out what was going to happen with this club, and I was like, wow, you know, these guys are like serious. And everything he said on that day, everything has come true. You know, we're going to, you know, this club are going to be in finals every season. We're going to be challenging for the big trophies. And I was a bit like, okay, you know.
You wanted to believe him.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. And lo and behold, you know, after a tricky start, they've been true to their word. But I've got no problem with the money. Just puts what the money does is it puts the players on the pitch. Everything we've won on the pitch, you know. And there is this misconception that Man City, they walk away with the league every year. Well, I've seen City win the league, 7 times. 5 of those times we won it on the last day. And in 4 of those times we've been behind on the last day. So it could have gone either way, you know, on those amazing days. So we don't walk away. We won it one year. We've got the 100 points. Fair enough. That was done by March. But no, I've got no problem. City have...
So no soul lost. And
No
when
way.
people throw your 150 charges against you, how do you take that on?
Well, the charges are ridiculous, some of them, right? And it's all about sponsorship. It's a grey area, to say the least. But let's wait and see. You know, the 115 charges for every other football supporter is a coping mechanism for them to deal with the fact that their team is shit, right? And ours have been built. We've got the best coach in the world, and we've got the best pool of players. And it's a coping mechanism for other people. But let's wait and see how this plays out, you know. And if they've broken the rules, and well, then they'll have to be punished for it, won't they? You know, it's as simple as that. But I'm afraid you're never going to take away that day against QPR. You're never going to take away that day against Aston Villa, where I was in the stadium the day against Aston Villa, and it was one of the maddest games of football I've ever seen. And it was won by sheer will, you know, and skill and endeavour and, you know, inspiring, you know, team talks by Guardiola. But the money itself, you need it. What are you gonna knock Man United off the perch, and are you going to knock Liverpool out or Arsenal without money? You know we're going to do it. And now City have got to a place where it's self-sustaining now anyway. So that's the blueprint for anybody that You like Newcastle now. We're kind of going to try and follow the same blueprint. But let's see how they do it.
What's your relationship to Liverpool Football Club, being a family with a lot of Irish and the rivalry that is going on?
Well, I loved Liverpool when they were up against United, right? When we were kind of nowhere. And now we're up against them. It gets very tense because I've got 3 Liverpool supporters in my band. And it can get, So when it comes to when we're playing them, we don't watch it together because it can get a little bit tense, and then we don't talk about it after. So whoever wins is kind of like, do you celebrating somewhere else, and then let's get on with the job. But they're one of the great clubs in the world, and they've got a great. I envy their European history. I can only dream of what it must be like to win the European Cup 6 times or whatever it is. And everybody loves Klopp,
What do you think? What will you think will happen? First, in a 2-part question, what do you think will happen to Liverpool after Klopp?
They're in trouble.
And what do you think? Yeah, you said they're in trouble.
They're in trouble.
But what will happen with Manchester City when Pep leaves?
Same thing. End of an era.
You think so?
Yeah. Man City have not put a foot wrong yet. When they arrived, they kept Mark Hughes for a bit until they got Mancini was great. Pellegrini was an upgrade on that. The goal was always to get Guardiola. That's why they built the training ground. And once Pep leaves, it'd be the same as Wenger leaving Arsenal and the same as Ferguson leaving United. End of an era. Then you start again. With Liverpool, they've had the best manager they've had in 30 years. And once he walks away, they start the cycle again and you can never tell. You never can tell. But I'm sure Liverpool have got somebody lined up, and I'm sure, the way City has run, I'd be amazed if Pep's going to leave. I'd be amazed if he didn't tell the club at least 2 seasons in advance. And I think Pep, he's here for another season. I think he stays because everything that he says in press conferences doesn't lead you to suspect there's anything other than he's happy and he's, everything is great. So, but yeah, none of us are daft enough to think, well, once Pep leaves, that we'll just carry on. That's why we all live in the moment. It's like we're the best team in the world now, and it's like enjoy it now because 5 years from now, anything could happen. Look at United. Well, when I was growing up, right, in the 70s and 80s, if you would have said to me, in 1989, Liverpool will go another 30 years without winning the league, I'd have said you were fucking insane, right? But it happened. If you'd have said to anyone in 2012, whenever it was, United will go another 11 years and count without winning the league, you'd have said they're mad, right? So why could you be so arrogant as to think that it's not going to be the same for City? It's going to be the same. We could go into years of not winning anything, or we could just, it could take it in our stride. But that's why we live in the moment now. And this guy, we should celebrate him while he's here, and this team that he's built. And
how was your conversations with Pep when you're sitting 1-to-1? Because I guess you both have so much passion for what you're doing.
He's great. I met him. The pre-season before he started, and up at the Etihad, and instantly. You just, because you're thinking, well, what's this guy going to be like? Because everybody was a fan before he came to City because of that Barcelona team, and it's like you've seen that. When Barcelona used to come to London and play Arsenal or Chelsea, me and a few friends used to go to the matches to see this Barcelona team because it was so futuristic the way they played football. It was amazing, and I remember going to see them play Arsenal once at the Emirates, and the game was 2-2, but Barcelona were 2-0 up at half time, and you had to count how many players they had on the pitch because it's like there's no way this is 11 aside. It looks like it's 14 versus 11 because there's always a man free somewhere, and so anyway, when you kind of met him, you was thinking, well, what's this guy going to be like? Is he going to be some intense kind of genius? And he's so nice. I mean, I'm sure you've met him yourself. He's such a nice, calm, warm, open, generous guy, And you know, I've been in his office when we've won, when we've lost, and he's he's always the same. You can see why young players in particular would die for him. Do you know what I mean? You could see why people love playing for him because, well, the players themselves, they'll tell you better than I could. You know, they always just say it's just the simple little things, you know, that he does in his coaching. It's like, why are you taking the ball with that foot? Take it with that foot. And everyone's like, oh, of course, you know. But he's a great guy. Really is very open, and yeah, you know, if no one's ever met him, you'd love him.
Then you sign a pop star. You sign Erling Haaland to make him a bridge to Erling. What did you expect when they signed Erling, and how will you describe him now after 1.5 years?
Well, most of us first seen him in these Champions League roundups, right? So you'd watch the City game or whatever the game was, and then they'd show the highlights from the Champions League, and they'd be like, you know, this guy, you know, and the commentator would say, oh, and Erling Haaland scores his 8th goal in his 6th appearance, and you look at it and he looks striking, and then you're like, oh no, his dad used to play for City, so immediately there's some kind of affection for him because his dad was we loved him at City, Alfie, and as the weeks went on and months, he's like scoring again and again. You see him, you just think, fuck me, this guy. And then he signed for Dortmund. And the funny thing is every time he came to City with Dortmund, he never played well against us because you can't get the ball off City. But then you think, But then every time you'd see him when they had the Bundesliga rounds, he'd be scoring these amazing goals where he was just so fast and like, you know. And then when it came to, well, he's going to make this move, I always thought he was going to come to City. There was just something inside me that thought, well, where else is he going to go? You know, you got the greatest coach in the world. I was convinced he was going to come to City, and so it came to pass. And I was away on holiday when he made his debut, and I was listening to it on the radio, and you can always tell, particularly with City, I think a debut will tell you everything about how a career is going to go. I remember Aguero's debut, scored 2 goals. He was amazing. I've seen City put by big players, and their debuts have been awful, and they've proved to be awful. And me and my 2 sons were listening to it on the radio, and of course he scored 2 goals, and we were like, wow, this guy. And then when I seen him for the first time in the flesh, he scored a hat-trick, and yeah, he's a superstar, you know. And then we get to meet him and all that, and he's just like a big kid. But he is a big kid, you know what I mean? He's just like when I met him, he was 21, 22, and he was...
I will have to show you the photo.
He was in his underpants.
Yeah, that's what I want to tell us. This I prepared that because that made around the world the picture of yourself. First of all, who is he?
The other guy is my mate Scully.
Scully, okay.
Right.
So we brought Scully to the dressing room.
Yeah. And
whose idea was the photo?
I don't know. I would never ask anybody for a photograph because I when people ask me, I get a bit. I'm always like, oh. So that's Scully, right? Who's a friend of the Stars, and he gave the photo to someone. I said, "I'll take a picture," and yeah. So he put it on social media, right? And of course, by the time I'd driven back to London, it was all over the world, and it was on the front page. Literally. Yeah, it was on the front page of one of the newspapers, these underpants, and well, he was just walking around with that drink that he drinks, whatever, I don't know
whatever,
there's some
mixture of things.
Yeah, some mad shit in it. And he had his hat-trick ball, and he was just in his underpants, and he was kind of getting into the music. And again, he was like a really warm, open guy. I mean, what was interesting was, before we met him, I thought this fucking colossal giant was going to come into the thing and he was going to be fucking like this. And actually, he's actually very slight. Everybody thinks he's like this beast, you know, like something from Game of Thrones. And actually, he's kind of quite slight, and he's not that. I mean, he only had flip-flops on, so he wasn't. I mean, I'm short anyway, but I was expecting him to be this fucking enormous thing, and he wasn't that important. You just think he just looked like a perfect athlete. Could have been like almost like built like a swimmer. Do you know what I mean? And he asked me for a picture of me, and I was like, "Oh, fucking hell.
Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do it for you." And he was great. And my two lads, when they couldn't go to that game at night because they were up for school in the morning. When I showed them the picture, they were like, "Did you meet him?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "What's he like?" And I was like, "He's great." And you know, he's younger than my daughter, you know, which kind of puts it on. He's just a kid, you know. And but he's been. If you're asking me what his 18 months has been like, it's been outrageous. Outrageous for him to score that many goals and had the season of his life, which, in all probability, he'll never have a season like that again. And not to get the Ballon d'Or was the final outrage of an outrageous season. It was just like, no, that's not right. It's not right. You know, he never scored in the final. Fair enough. You know, but fucking hell, man. It's like this kid's 52 goals in 56 games and won the hardest treble to win, the Champions League, the League and FA in England. It's like, come on, man. That was just like, that's a piss take.
I guess it's a disadvantage being a Norwegian. We never play in World
Well,
Cups
yeah,
and in tournaments.
But the fact that Messi got it, I mean, look, Messi's the greatest player that ever lived. We all know that. You know, he's playing in Miami. Who cares? Do you know what I mean? And he won the World Cup, right? But he's got 8 of the fucking things. You know what I mean? He doesn't need another one. And the sad thing is Erling may never have a season like that again. You know, it's inconceivable to think that he'd get into the 50s again. I mean, who knows? He might prove us all wrong, but he's been phenomenal, better than anybody could have expected.
And what's your advice? I mean, being a pop star in Manchester, the footballers are big stars in Manchester. What's your advice to that life of him? You say getting over 50 in his first season, and he got like this cartoonish kind of stature of himself. So he will be noticed everywhere. We are exactly more or less the same age as 67s. What's your advice to him?
Well, I've seen the documentary that you did, and the first thing that strikes you is he's got good people around him. He seems like a good family. He lives well. Do you know what I mean? He's not like in England. There's this conception of these footballers, you know, the tattoos and the fucking falling out of nightclubs and this, that, and the other. He has got good people around him, and he seems just very focused and level-headed. If he's got a great family around him and he's at a great club, which nobody treats their players like City do, and a great coach on top of that, then he's going to be fine. I wouldn't have thought anybody has any worries about him whatsoever. You know, if he was Brazilian, on the other hand, you'd be thinking, well, you know, how's this going to go? But I don't have any. I wouldn't have any worries with him. The only thing is, you know, injuries, not all that. But that's like professional thing. But as being a lad in the public eye, no, he knows who he is. That's the thing that strikes you by him. He knows who he is already. You know, it's like fame and all that. You can doubt yourself, and you know, people have a different perception of you, and you might think, am I that guy or am I this guy? What, you know. And people that surround you might want you to be this larger than life character, but really you're just like a normal guy with an extraordinary talent. With him, from what I can see anyway, he knows who he is, and that's the key.
Talking about that enormous treble season, they won the Champions League final, and you were in USA, or were you?
I was in San Diego. Yeah.
You were in San Diego in California playing.
Yeah.
How did you follow the game?
I was in a Man City supporters bar.
Was there something about you playing in your underwear if they won the final, or what is that? Is that just a story going around?
No. So what happened is, every time I book a tour, I always get my manager and agent to block out like a few days either side of the Champions League final, right? Always. Except last year, forgot to factor in the World Cup, right? Forgot about it. So it was like they got to the final, brilliant. When we going, oh, we can't go because I was like, well, hang on a minute. It's been put back a week till the 10th, and it's always around my birthday, either the 29th to like the 1st of June or something, 29th of May to the 1st of June. And I was devastated. I was like, when we got San Diego, fucking hell, I couldn't believe it. And yeah, I was in this bar with, you know, a few hundred City fans and watching it on these big screens, and it was a horrible fucking experience. It was so tense. And when we scored, you know, and then it was just a horrible game, and you know, Kevin went off injured, and it looked like it, you know, it looked like Inter were going to score, you know, it was, and then we won it. It was such relief, but I'd done that much shouting at the TV that I had to cut the gig short that night because my voice just went. But it was, yeah, and it's a funny thing because I left almost the morning after we won the league. So I seen us win the FA Cup in Seattle, the Champions League in San Diego. By the time I got back off that tour, the new season had already started. It was over, you know. So I missed the parade, I missed everything, you know. So I was watching it on, you know, the Man City app on YouTube, all the celebrations, and all my friends in Manchester sending videos, and but I always say about these things. People are like, "Oh, you're not going." It's like, as long as we win, I don't care if I'm there. I couldn't. To me, obviously, being there would be incredible. And I think the next three of the 5 Champions League finals are at Wembley, I think. So fingers crossed I'll get to see City at least play in a final there and hopefully win one of them. But me being there is irrelevant. As long as they won, it was great. And it was just a great thing to shut everybody up, because that was the thing for the last 12 years, was like, until they win, oh, you know, Jamie Carragher, fucking Gary Neville on the telly, oh, until they win the Champions League, and now we've won it, you know, they had to then bring up these fucking charges. Once that's settled, it was like, what else will it be? What else will it be? Yeah.
We're coming to an end, but I just want to show you a video of an interview with Erling, and if everything now is sorted out there, I'll probably manage to do it, because he says here. So I had an interview with him at City, and I can't remember what. Let's see. So.
Are you the guy who will get Oasis back together?
Are you the guy?
A Norwegian guy, a peacemaker, to get them together and to get them together, maybe, yeah.
Because you have a past as a singer.
Yeah, true.
Oh yeah,
Could you be the third?
That's a good question. Yeah, of course I can be. Doesn't mean I will be, but of course I can. I can be. Yeah.
Because Noel, I can't sit with you, and it's the same as a transfer period. You wait for Fabrizio Romano to say, "Here we go," and you get all the. And I think, could Erling be the guy who get the team together?
Maybe. I mean, maybe. If anyone's going to do it, it could be him. You know, I'd imagine Liam would be terrified of him. If
he would be terrified of him.
Oh God, Liam's terrified of his own shadow. But I'd imagine he'd be terrified of Haaland if he ever met him. But yeah, well, you never know. You never. Stranger things have happened.
And I know you don't like. Probably everybody asks you, but I will say as a fan that we will love that. Still, your songs are there, out there, and if you could say, this is at the end here, if you could have a title of a song that you've made that would describe Erling Haaland, which one will that be?
One of my songs?
Yeah.
Supersonic.
Supersonic?
Yeah.
And explain.
Well, because when you see that guy in full flight, you know, he's like a supersonic jet, you know, and he's unstoppable, you know. When he gets back to full fitness, well, that period where he scored 3 hat-tricks in a row, and he scored, like, you know, 18 goals in 7 games or something, was that, we have to think back to that. It was only last season, but it was fucking crazy. It never happened in England before. And yeah, be Supersonic.
Supersonic.
Yeah, because he's got Supersonic's got the swagger, right? And he's got the swagger. You know when you see him walk on the pitch, and he's just got that look on his face where he's like, he knows he's going to score. You know, so Supersonic.
Got a look on your face. That's a line as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't look back in anger, is it?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be looking back in anger. Like footballers, you know, it's a different kind of pressure for them because they represent the club and the people of the city and the fans, and they're performing every week. I perform every few years, you know what I mean? And they're criticised and lauded, and you know, I mean, I suppose albums are as well, but it's a different kind of pressure for footballers, you know, because everybody, all your supporters, they've invested their life into you, do you know what I mean? And you can make or break their weekend, every weekend. Rock stars is a bit, we've got a longer career, we can drink more, you know, we can party more, so I'd rather be a rock star than be a footballer, if I'm being honest.
Noel, thanks. You've been very generous with
No
your
worries.
time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Nice
Thank
for
you
that.
very much.